Hey everybody, it's Negro VMX here, and it's time for some new comic reviews. Starting off with some stuff from last week. Firstly, Trinity number 16. Bit of an improvement here as the battle between Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman with Enigma, Morgan Le Fay, and Despero comes to a conclusion, finally. For once, I was excited to see what happens, although the revelation of who Enigma was a real duh moment. Although Superman got cut off when he was saying it, it's obvious what he was going to say, and we're all thinking it. Also, for one of the backup features, it actually had something to do with the story in general, making me wonder why the backup features ever existed and weren't just integrated into the main story. The art is decent, and for once, I didn't feel like I was being punished by reading it. Gonna give this one an 8 out of 10. Simpsons Comics, number 146, is an interesting one, with Marge becoming a roller derby star and Lisa being the usual complication for the millionth time questioning who she looks up to. It's been done before, and it isn't done in any especially good or funny way this time. Not to say that this is a bad issue, but it certainly wasn't a good one. I'm gonna call it average, and therefore a 5 out of 10. Batman and the Outsiders number 11 is a book I was prepared to talk about last week, but forgot to. As you remember, last week's issue of Action Comics was a re-release with a slightly different cover, as apparently somebody at DC thought the idea that Superman and his dad could have beers together is offensive. Batman and the Outsiders, however, has Green Arrow breaking into Batman's house when he's not there and drinking his booze. Of course, it's Superman that catches him. I don't know. Is this a red versus blue thing? Can annoyingly socialist Errol Flynn wannabes break into houses and get drunk, but Superman can't enjoy one beer? I'll never understand it. Anyway, this particular book deals with how the fallout from Batman Rest in Peace affects this particular book, with the Outsiders finding themselves without a leader and Batgirl trying to fill the vacuum somewhat, though not everyone's nuts about that. The ending is interesting, but not knowing exactly when this takes place in the overall tapestry of Batman Rest in Peace, or exactly how Batman flying off on a dragon, or whatever, got integrated into that story. The book hasn't been as good now as it was when it started, but I can't fault it too much. Having been forced into a crossover event can't not affect it. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. Moving on to this week's books, we'll start with Captain America number 42, which finally finishes the Death of Captain America storyline that started with issue 25. 17 issues is a very long arc, though Marvel seems to do well when they do this sort of thing. A great example would be Planet Hulk. Captain America's latest opus started off badly, with issue 25 being nothing more than shock schlock. But the stories afterward have been a lot better. I don't personally feel that a whole lot gets resolved at this issue, but it is time to move on. The Red Skull is foiled, and his final predicament is certainly interesting, even if it comes off as an idea that sounds less than original. Though I have mixed feelings about the issue as a single unit, the overall end of the arc, it's a good feeling. Gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Daredevil number 111 is an example of Brubaker doing the opposite of the consistency he had on Captain America. The Lady Bullseye arc started off with much fanfare but no excitement, as a female version of Bullseye shows up with a lackluster, mysterious origin and unknown goals. The real Bullseye is seen briefly, Matt seems to be losing it, and the book shows an unusual amount of side boob. I couldn't get into this one. What with so much lead up to other storylines being completely ignored and the main character coming up as unlikable, and Iron Fist being a wasted guest stint who seemed to be acting more like Adrian Vett than Danny Rand. The word is meh, and the score is 4 out of 10. Deadpool number 2 is a huge improvement over the first issue, which didn't deliver the full package and seemed like a small pamphlet that read more like an ad for the first issue than the actual issue. With this one, Wade's plan becomes quite obvious to about everybody but the Skrulls themselves, and the last page reveal is actually quite exciting. Deadpool is back, though he's 1 month late. Gotta give it an 8 out of 10. Blue Beetle number 31 is also a huge improvement, though the series hasn't quite bounced back from last month. The improvement is definitely there. Possibly a contributing factor to the fact that it hasn't bounced back completely is the artwork, which comes off as sloppy and sketchy, with character proportions being fluid and out of whack, and Dr. Midnight looking constantly, constipated. The story, however, is quite good, wrapping up enough threads and bringing in new ones, all of which are relevant to my interests. A good issue that is quite encouraging for fans of the character. Gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Superman number 680, well, what can I say? If you love the last issue, you're gonna love this issue even more. I can't imagine anyone reading this and not absolutely loving it. It may quite possibly be the best crypto story ever told. Between the action, narrative, decent artwork, which is surprising from Renato Guedes, and the absolutely touching ending, you're an idiot if you don't get this. 10 out of 10. Superman Batman number 52 takes the wackiness of the last issue and adds in just enough seriousness to make the story come off as very funny, but not a joke. The reveal of who brought in the little Justice League, Injustice League rather, was amusing, though Batman's reaction makes me wonder where and when this took place. Though I suppose it doesn't really matter. Definitely recommended, and I find myself wondering exactly when this formerly bad series suddenly became good. It's a good solid 8 out of 10. Teen Titans number 63, oddly enough, doesn't deal very much with the big shocking events of last issue, but instead wastes a lot of time with Bombshell. Also, I guess it wasn't Ares' last issue. I thought it was, but it's his son. Weird. Somehow I think this is almost like Green Lantern Volume 2, Issue 47. A shoehorned single-issue story in the middle of a bigger story that makes no sense and just got smooshed in because it was already written. Gonna give it a 6 out of 10. Now that's probably pretty generous. Lastly, Trinity number 17 is a huge disaster after last week's improved offering, giving us very little of the actual Trinity and a huge issue, mostly dedicated to characters I had no interest in at all. I was barely even to get through this issue. Everything that's wrong with Trinity could be found in this issue, and a whole slew of other problems as well. Avoid at all costs. Not for consumption. Do not want 2 out of 10. And that's it for this week. It looks like I actually got around to everything, so we'll see you next Thursday with more comic book reviews.